This is episode 90 of Standing Out. Standing Out is a remarkable interview-style podcast with the intention to highlight women and men making outstanding contributions in their field. This podcast is generously sponsored by Meet Jointly. Across the country, there are small businesses just starting to scale, get distribution, and launch in national retailers. They all share one really big challenge: reaching new customers and growing their brand on a shoestring budget. Meet Jointly is a platform that connects growing brands with the influencers who are ready to share their product and stories with their engaged audience. Today, I'd like to welcome Anthony Standifer. Across a 19-year career in beauty, Anthony has worked for many of the largest beauty titans in the industry, including Revlon, Dabur International Namaste Laboratories, in various marketing positions, having launched more than 400 products and retailers such as Walmart, Walgreens, Whole Foods, Kroger, and Target. In 2014, he co-founded mSEED Group with a business partner, Erica Douglas, with the sole purpose of empowering small and mid-sized companies in the beauty industry through a unique product formulation, manufacturing, and marketing consulting. Today, mSEED Group has quickly become a seven-figure company that has serviced more than 80 companies. Anthony is a host of the newly launched podcast, Driving the Business, Beauty, Brands, and Entrepreneurship. His passion includes all things beauty, entrepreneurship, travel, and Jen. Welcome, Anthony. Thanks for being here.
Welcome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I would love to go back, like way back in the Wayback Machine, to your 19 career. How did you get into the beauty industry?
By happenstance. So nothing ever is like carefully crafted out in my life. I start moving and things start happening, which seems to be the case for most people, I think.
Yeah.
So I went to undergrad college and I changed my major like most people a dozen or so times. For whatever reason, I was super fixated on the idea that I needed to graduate in 4 years. I didn't want to be a 5 or 6 year undergrad student. And so I had an internship because I worked through college like a lot of folks do.
Yeah.
At the end of that, my internship turned into a job. It was in marketing communications within the telecom industry. I found that I liked my work for that first year and a half after college. I just didn't like the industry. And then I had the great fortune of being called into an office and being laid off at 22 years old.
Oh my God.
And so working in the telecom industry was boom and bust time. And so during my departure, my supervisor at the time handed me a sheet of paper and was going through the typical HR,
Yeah.
consideration. This is what we're going to do to try to find you other positions within the company. And oh, by the way, here's a severance package for your tenure here, for both your internship and as a full-time employee.
Oh, wow.
And so a healthy 5-figure check, and for a 22-year-old who's just been working for under 2 years formally, maybe 3 years with the internship,
Sure.
this is the greatest day ever.
Right? You're like, can I get laid off more often? This is awesome.
Can I get laid off more often, please?
Oh.
So I left work that day and was thinking like, well, what am I going to do? And I realized that I enjoyed marketing. I didn't necessarily like the industry I was in. But many of my friends were creatives or artists, and I thought, well, why don't I, and several of my friends were hairstylists, so I thought, well, why don't I apply for maybe some hair care positions here in the city, because I live in the Chicagoland area. And so I was like, well, let me just give it a shot, and I went home and Googled some places and looked online and applied for a few jobs, and eureka, I got hired at a family-owned beauty care company as an associate brand manager, and it was like love and marriage all together, because it made me connect with an industry that I'm super passionate about, and it uses a skill set that I have, which is this idea of branding, marketing, and then the creative beauty that comes out of marketing beauty products.
That's really awesome. So how did you take your experience from this sort of mom and pop or small business and kind of jump into like the corporate realm with Revlon? Like, we've all heard about Revlon. So how do you do that? How do you take a leap like that?
Well, it's interesting. So I tell people, particularly younger folks now, I don't know if I'm old or in the middle here, but start wherever you're at. And small companies and startup companies are an amazing place to get your feet wet in an industry. I worked there for about 3 years, and at the time when the opportunity for Revlon came up, I was like, this is amazing. And they really liked the idea that I had been at a small startup company. They weren't as familiar with the company or the brands, but I had the skill set and had done a wide range of jobs that were far broader than what other candidates were coming to the table with. So
Right.
the cool thing about brand management and marketing in general is that you do so much. And so ultimately, you're responsible for managing a brand, promoting a brand, coming up with ideas and concepts, managing people in agencies. And so it's such a broad, diverse skill set that not many people have and do well. They're either very siloed and do one or two things very specifically, but because I'd worked at a smaller company, you're responsible for everything.
I tell you what, and I have a similar background. In my first marketing job out of college was one of those roles. You did everything from
Exactly.
not only creating the radio or TV spots and sometimes being the voice of those spots.
By the way, your talent today.
Like very inexpensive talent. I'm here anyway, or an extra in something, all the way to booking and placing that, and then also doing the analytics and tracking. I mean, it's so much in those smaller companies, and I do think that's a real asset to see and have experience
Indeed,
in
it
all those
is.
places. So, did you always know you wanted to start your own company, or where were you in that journey?
Absolutely not. So I
No.
spent 14 years working in big companies, and
Okay.
they got progressively big the more that I went through the process. And so I've always called myself a bit of a reluctant entrepreneur,
Mm.
because my training was, hey, you get a job, you work a job, and if I, for whatever reason, am not working out at a specific job, you just go find another one. But this idea of full-time entrepreneurship was something that was not on my radar. Oddly enough, I recognize in my patterns that even in working and having really great, amazing positions within companies, I always had a side hustle. And
Mm.
so I'd take a consulting project, or somebody would ask me to help with the project, and that's no problem. Sure. So it didn't interfere with my 9 to 5, and wasn't a conflict of interest. So I was always doing something in tandem to my full-time position. And that's just been my personality, I think, since college, and working multiple jobs and still going to school at the same time. And so the last place that I worked was pretty interesting. It was a large company, and I was managing marketing for beauty brands outside of the US. Even though I was based in Chicago, I was doing and managing the brand's presence in Europe and Africa and some other markets. And so there was a young lady there who was the head of research and development. And she left the company. And so she went off to do this kind of random thing at some parts company. It was totally beauty related and totally un-CPG or consumer packaged goods related. And so she and I had become pretty good friends. And about 2 weeks after her leaving the company, and this is Erica Douglas, I called her up a few days before Christmas because that was just the timing. And I said, hey, let's go have drinks and tapas and just catch up on things.
Yeah.
During that evening, she shared with me an idea that she had. And she said, hey, I'm a chemist, and I recognize that there are all of these smaller beauty brands that are out there that I have no way of servicing because I work for this big company. I've now left. I'd love to be able to help people, but I don't have the resources or the structure in place. And there's no place that people can go and get short run manufacturing done efficiently.
Mm.
So she saw that as a gap and an opportunity and said, hey, I think there's something here. And in addition to short runs, the other thing that people need are marketing services. How do you then navigate your brand once you've got your first 500 units of something? Now, what do you do? And so her idea was to create this environment and space where people could go and receive almost incubator type services and an accelerator program type services, but within the beauty space. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. You're so smart. That's so amazing. You're going to be so successful.
She cracked the code.
And during the course of the conversation, she was like, well, who's going to do all this marketing stuff? And I was like, I don't know, but you're so smart. Amazing. And she's like, well, what about you? And I was like, ooh.
Oh, mic drop.
Like, yeah, that I got a job and I got a direct deposit, and my life is really good in that area. And so I was like, yeah, let me think about that. And in my head, I'm thinking, no way. But it's so funny because then, life circumstances happened. The place that I had been in was not feeling so good at that point. And it just felt like a destined conversation. And I was like, wait a minute, Anthony, you're not a person that's afraid of risk, and you're not a person that's afraid of opportunity. And oftentimes, opportunity initially comes veiled as risk because
Right.
it's like, in order to do this, I got to give something up. And I thought, this is amazing. I'm going to do it. And so over the course of a year, it wasn't like we decided day one and I left and we started day two, but
Yeah.
really over the course of probably about 9 months or so, it was like, okay, this is a real thing. I need to really get prepared for it and make this transition.
That's amazing. During that transition, do you feel like your partner was very patient with you, or was it like, come on, Anthony, get on board? Like,
No, she was patient.
She was.
She was
Okay.
patient. So the funny thing is, so she, and at the time there were actually three of us. And so she had the initial idea and had found a second business partner who was helping us with the manufacturing side. And she's our research and development. And then I was part of the trifecta with the marketing and the consulting background.
Okay.
And so we all were actively employed. And so it wasn't as if any of us took this idea of taking this leap of faith lightly. There's critical functions like finances that you need to get in order.
Yeah, totally.
I had the good fortune of, in my 14-year career, I'd had a time where I was unemployed or not actively employed and was just doing consulting gigs. And so I knew what that space was like to not have a consistent every 2-week direct deposit hit my bank account.
Sure.
So it wasn't completely foreign, but this was like a totally different level of that really took time and consideration for us to all put our heads together individually and collectively to say, hey, is this something that we really want to do?
Yeah. Now that you are an entrepreneur, an accidental one, what would you say is your favorite part about being an entrepreneur?
Easy question. Control.
Oh,
Yes, I did not realize how much of a control freak I am. So here's the thing. My job is crazy. My life is not normal. I recognize that everyone is not built or meant to do this kind of entrepreneurial journey. And so people who say I can be my own boss, then do it, because you will quickly learn if it's for you or if it's not for you.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that even in the midst of the craziness and the ups and downs and tribulations that come along with it and amazing joys, the thing that I feel best about is that I know that I control the outcome of my future at the highest degree. And so ultimately it lands in my lap to decide how my future goes, and not just mine in this instance, but now the future of about 15 other people in terms of how we operate from a professional perspective. But I never had that same type of control. I was working in middle management and senior management within beauty companies, but at any given moment, someone could call you into a room and say, hey, today's your day to not be here tomorrow.
Yeah. No, it's true.
Or not even just the firing, because I wasn't necessarily afraid of that, but just even understanding the outcomes of projects or decisions and things that needed to be made. In big corporate situations, I recognized that I was an influencer,
Okay.
but I wasn't the ultimate decision maker.
Right.
And so being the decision maker has responsibility, but I find I really, really enjoy that. And for whatever reason, it speaks to my control needs.
I love that you learned that about yourself. That's awesome.
Thanks.
What would you say is like on those tougher days, right? How do you recover from a tougher day so that you keep that passion and you keep that excitement about your entrepreneurial journey?
Great question. We all need to have a bag of tricks in terms of how we de-escalate in stressful situations.
Sure.
So for me, I'm much like most people in that, and sometimes if I just need to kind of zone out for a bit, social media is my friend. I'm pretty active on Instagram and Facebook, and so that's a great, just kind of zone out for a few minutes and just see what happens. If that doesn't work, then
See what happens. I like that.
Yeah, see what happens, because sometimes that's not enough. I'm like, okay, I'm still in a bad space.
Social wasn't good enough today.
One other thing. What's that?
I was saying social wasn't good enough today. We have more.
Social wasn't good enough. No, we got to go stronger.
Thank you.
The other thing that actually really does well for me is driving.
Okay.
I'm in motion. Like I travel a lot, and people go, don't you get tired of traveling? Absolutely not, because when I'm in motion on a plane, in a car, it relaxes me.
Okay, yeah.
And so if I am in a tense situation, then I will just get in the car and ride. No radio, no sound, just me and the room. And that does a pretty good job of then de-escalating, whatever it is that I'm going through. And then I'm also fortunate to have one or two people in my life that are really great sounding boards. And so if the situation is bad, we have this, and this may sound a little cruel, but I call it the vomit. And so I'm not the person that necessarily needs the advice or sometimes wants the advice, but I do want to at least get it out. And so it's a great friend and say, hey, it's a heavy day. I just need to expunge here. So she's like, okay, I got my bib on. Let's go.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. It's so good you have that. So as we wrap up, my last question is about scaling. I think so many of us entrepreneurs are always going for growth and getting to that next level. And you've done that very quickly. What is your secret sauce to that? How have you scaled so quickly?
We've worked. I think we have hard worked our way through this. There is, I think, some luck and serendipity that comes along with it. But the great news is I know that after 14 years of working in the business, I can say I kind of know what I'm doing in relation to beauty spaces and what it takes to scale and manage a beauty brand. So I never worry, do I know what I'm doing? What I do worry about is, do I know what I'm doing in the context of this business and having my own space and managing things like payroll, employee issues, benefits, consulting with customers and managing all of their issues. So that's the area that is the stretch and the learning, but I am so not afraid to be wrong. And I just want to get the work done, and hopefully the work is good, and in most cases it is. But in the instances where it's not, I'm okay with saying this didn't work so well and let's fix it, or let's leave it where it is and move on. And so, and between myself and my business partners, I think we all have that attitude that the work gets done, and that it doesn't go incomplete or sort of lingering out there. And as long as we deliver on what we say we're going to deliver on, that is the measure of success. And we do that day in and day out. And my hope is that the consistency of our efforts is what's going to result in even more massive success for us.
Yeah. And I love your answer that you've hard worked your way into it, because I think, as an entrepreneur, I feel like we see so much in Entrepreneur Magazine or Inc. Magazine about these, what we view as overnight successes, and so many of those overnight successes truly took a decade to become an overnight success. And
absolutely.
I love the authenticity of, it's been hard work, and there's been times you've been wrong. There's been things that you haven't known how to handle, and you've just, worked your way through it. Thanks for
exactly.
that.
Yeah, no, it's the honest truth. So
yeah. Well, thanks for being here, Anthony. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Katrina. I appreciate you as well.
You're welcome.